So let me tell you a little bit about the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. We are a centralized information hub for educators, families, and community partners. We work with these constituencies to create collaborations and build bridges on all things family engagement. We do this by providing tools and strategies such as our in-person workshops and our online virtual offerings. We also work with these constituencies to empower our youth. We need to know what our youth need so that they continue to be successful both in school and out of school.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. All right, everyone. So, welcome to Digital Wellbeing and Social Awareness in the AI Era. I'm Erica Brenton, and I will be your webinar host for today. So, let's get started. A little introduction to myself. I have been an educator for over 20 years now. I started off as a New York City public school teacher. I became very interested in the field of social emotional learning, which is all things that children need to succeed, like social awareness, self-awareness, self-control, emotional intelligence. And so I started my own business where I support teachers and schools and families with all of those social emotional learning skills. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, and I have two children. One is in elementary school and one is in middle school. So this work is very interesting to me from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. So I would love to know a little bit more about you and who's in this Zoom room with us today. If you would not mind sharing in the chat your location, who are your children's ages, and then what role are you calling in today from? Are you a parent? Are you an educator? So just a little bit of information, both for myself and for everyone else who's here with us today would be fantastic. We'll just hang on tight for a minute or so while everyone enters their responses. All right, we have some folk. Oh, Brownsville, Texas. Fantastic. Welcome. I have a parent of 10 and 8-year-old. Welcome. I have children similar ages. Oh, 13 and 9. Those are how old my children are. Welcome from Randock, New Jersey. We have some, oh, Houston, Texas. We have 3 and 10. Charleston, South Carolina. Wow, there's folks from all over the country dialing in today. That's fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for putting your information into the chat. We'll wait another little bit. Okay. We have a mom of two boys, 12 and 16, but also in the New Jersey Department of Education, Trenton, New Jersey. Okay. Older sibling with disability. Welcome. And we'll just hang on tight for another 10 seconds or so. Okay. So even if you haven't entered your information into the chat, and I know some folks are like on their phone and it might be hard, that's totally fine. But if you wanted to introduce yourself, we would love to hear a little bit about you. So please feel free, even if I move on to the next slide, to share with us who you are. So we are going to do a lot of interactive experiences today, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I think that reflection is such an important part of this process, and really understanding ourselves, really understanding our children. So I hope that if you're able to share in the chat that you do. And again, this is for my benefit, but also for everybody else's benefit to really learn from each other. So I want you to think about your child's experience with technology, and I want you to think of one word that comes to mind. And if you could share that word in the chat, that would be fantastic. So your child's experience with technology, just one word that comes to mind. Okay, we have one, distracted, righteous. That's very interesting. Confusing, limited. Okay, so maybe some folks with younger children have more limited access, or maybe even older children. Advanced. Okay, so we have some advanced, some limited, confusing, distracted. I would say my my word would probably be messy. I think the whole thing feels a little messy to me. Unpredictable, absolutely. So today what we're going to do is, as I shared, we're going to do a lot of reflection. I'm going to introduce you to a framework that you can use when thinking about your child's use and interactions with technology. We're going to talk a bit about AI and how that affects ourselves and our children. We'll talk about a scenario that we can all work through together. And then I'm going to share a lot of resources with you that will come at the end. But you will definitely leave here today feeling, I hope, more equipped to support yourselves and your children on their technology journey. So I want you to think about a recent time that your child used technology. How did it affect their mood, behavior, or interactions? And how did it affect you? So you can enter your like two words into the chat if you want to. How did it affect your child and how did it affect you? I'm just going to give a short example for myself. So this morning, my son came into the kitchen while I was having some quiet time drinking my coffee, and he was blasting his music really, really loud from his phone, and it was very loud. And I think he was excited and happy. He was enjoying himself. I personally felt very frustrated. So I would say, how did it affect his mood? He was entertained. I was frustrated. Okay, we have some entries into the chat. So we have frustrated. Yep, I was also very frustrated, Rachel. We have the child was distracted and I was annoyed. Yep, that sounds so exactly my daily experience with my children. Um, we homeschool, so they are very structured with technology. Okay, so that's fantastic. And I hope that you're able to offer us some suggestions and ideas for that kind of structure because we'd love to learn more from you. Anybody else? Anything, other ways that your child has been affected by their technology? Okay, so again, please feel free to continue to enter your thoughts and ideas into the chat. I'm going to move on, but we'd love to hear from you. So let's talk a bit about this digital landscape that our children are living in. When you look at this landscape, it could feel like a lot, right? We have social media, messaging, gaming, AI. But underneath it all, what kids are really doing is something much more profound. Every time they use technology, they're making decisions, managing emotions, and interacting with other people. And to do this successfully, they really need those social and emotional learning skills to navigate this terrain that's always changing. And I would actually say is changing on a daily basis. So, these are five skills that kids use every time and that they really need every time that they're on a device. I like to call it the S's and the R's framework, and I'm going to go through each one. So, self-awareness is really when a child starts to notice, I feel frustrated right now, or I feel left out when I see that post, or I've been on this longer than I meant to be. And this awareness is really the starting point for everything else. Then we have self-management. So self-management is really what happens next. So can they do something about it? So they were aware of their feelings, aware of their emotions and their thoughts. Now, can they do something about that? Can they stop the game when it's time? Can they take a break without feeling overwhelmed? Can they put the phone down even if they don't want to? And then we have social awareness. Social awareness really comes up in things like group chats and texting. So, kind of with older kids, maybe. Can they read tone? Can they recognize when someone might feel left out? Can they understand that there's a real person on the other side of the screen? Then we come to relationship skills. Relationship skills are about how kids handle interactions online. So, what do they do if there's a misunderstanding in a text? How do they respond in a group chat? How do they repair if they hurt someone, even if they did it unintentionally? And then finally, there's responsible decision making, which is really happening constantly. So, questions like, should I post this? Should I respond to this message? Should I use AI for this assignment? And if I do use AI, then how? And so the question really becomes, how do we teach these skills to our kids? So I have some ideas for things that I know work for my family, and I also know from research is are things that work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share how we can teach these skills to our kids. I would love to hear after I'm done what is working for you, right? So these are things that work for me and things that research says works, but there might be things that are working for you too, and we'd love to hear. So the first thing is modeling. And modeling is really setting that example for our kids. Like, this is how we use technology. This is how we use, whatever it is, an iPhone, a device, a gaming system. And so we want to teach them those skills through modeling. So, for example, one thing I like to do is I like to show my kids some of the text messages that I send, and I'll show it to them even when I'm in conflict. Like, I often get in conflict with my sister, and I'll send her text messages and my kids will be like, let me see, let me see. And I'll say, okay, here's a text message I sent and I sent to my sister and this is what it says. And so that's really teaching them that skill of that relationship building skill and that social awareness skill. And also just any kind of technology habits that I have are going to be passed down to them. Narration is a really fantastic tool. It's a way to share with your children that technology can be used as a tool and not just an endless source of entertainment. And so, what I like to do is I'll be on my phone because I have, let's say I have work. I have to check their team sports schedule. I have to check the weather to make sure everyone is dressed appropriately. And so, what I'll do is I'll narrate that, right? I'm not just scrolling on Instagram. I'm not, doing X, Y, and Z. I'm using this as a tool. We can encourage our kids to have something called pause points, and that's really that self-management skill. I want to share with you something we have in our home. It was from a digital well-being class that my seventh grader took, and it's really helping them to stop while they're, in the midst of using a device or before they click or share or ask AI a question. They can think, right? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? And then they can make a good decision. And this is hanging up on our refrigerator, and it's a tool that, we don't constantly talk about it or make our kids do these things all the time, but they know that this is important to us. They see this messaging, and I think it kind of helps them to instill those values. One of the most helpful things we can do for our kids is have emotional check-ins after screen use. And so, what research shows is that instead of asking kids what they did online, we want to ask them how they felt, because most likely that they will continue to do things that feel good and discontinue things that feel bad. So I might say to my son, how did it feel after you were on your, watching YouTube for 15 minutes? Or how did it feel when you were playing FIFA for an hour, right? And if it doesn't feel good, we can make better decisions the next time. And finally, we do something called co-creating expectations. And I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like as well. So before my son got his video game system, we created a contract with him, and baked into that contract were all the things that I felt were important, expectations that were important for him and for us. So I'm just as an example of that skill of self-management, like really knowing when time is up. The yellow arrow is pointing to one of those bullets that says, I will not argue with mom or dad when time is up. And if I do, I will lose my game time the following day or weekend. And so this contract was signed by both of us. We hung it up on the fridge. And whenever we had any disagreements or there was any like wavering from the contract, we always came back to it to say, these are the expectations and the conditions that we hold you to. And then for his phone, we did something very similar, but we had to kind of advance it a little bit and really put in those social awareness skills. So if you see where the yellow arrow is pointing under the phone contract, you'll see that we wrote in social situations, for example, if you're out in the car with your friends at the pool, the phone should be a way for you to engage in normal human interaction. And so for him, he understood what that meant. If your child is younger, maybe they don't understand what that means and you want to be a little bit more specific. But I would say for any technology at any age, an agreement and a contract could be so, so useful. So I've just done a lot of talking and I'm curious, what's working for you? Is there anything that I didn't share? Oh, and someone actually already wrote in the chat. That's fantastic. Thank you. So we have limited screen time when allowed on weekends. It's monitored through parental controls and has restrictions. That sounds like you are really getting a lot of good structure and routine into your technology uh, behaviors. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit because I didn't see. We do screen time on vacation. Oh, only screen time on vacation. Glued to their iPads when available makes me feel like a bad mom. Okay. That is not being a bad one. That sounds like you're doing a lot of really good screen structuring and restriction. So good for you. I think that the most important thing about this work, and just from conversations I have with families and experts in the field, really, there's no right way to do this because every family is different and every family needs something unique and different for themselves. So I would just encourage you in this work to just make sure that you're being kind to yourself and knowing that whatever you're doing, it's enough. We can make small tweaks here and there. But it's such an imperfect, just like parenting is super imperfect, I feel like digital well-being is also very imperfect, and we can just try our best. Okay, we have another someone in the chat. We say if you can't put it down, don't pick it up for video. Oh, that's a great line. When someone tries to talk to you during game time, it's important to pause. That's fantastic. And we also sit together when they have questions about what they see or hear online. That sounds like such an open way of getting your kids to talk to you and also making sure that they take those pause points is fantastic. Anybody else have anything that's working for you that you'd like to share? And again, if I advance a slide and you think of something, please feel free to continue to add it into the chat. Oh, and they have to come to me for extra time too. Great. So lots of things that are working for you, Rachel. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on, but I want you to keep, I'm going to come back to the chat. So I want you to, if you think of something, please feel free to put it in. Again, I have a lot of information to share, but there's a lot of wisdom in this room, and we'd love to learn from each other. The conversation will be richer if you are able to share some of your thoughts and ideas too. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what's working, right? What is working for us? I shared some ideas. Oh, we have, sorry, before we get on to this, I'm going to just read this real quick. Sorry, sometimes when things come up in the chat, I want to read them right away. We don't put importance in technology, one-on-one time with kids, tech as a tool rather than an X. That's fantastic. Pros and cons on software. Okay. No, I think that talking to your kids as adults works for you. And I think um, that feels important to your family. Again, I think whatever works for your family is fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing, Christina. So I'm just curious, what do you think is the hardest part about doing this work? What's the hardest part? I have some ideas for myself, but just curious to hear from you. What is hard about it?
I can chime in, not in the chat, but
Go for it.
so my reports are due today, so I feel like I'm already like typed out. But
Yeah.
no, one of the things that I struggle with probably most is with my older son, who's the autistic one. I I'm very protective of him online, and I feel like he's incredibly vulnerable because especially with like social media, with AI, I'm never sure, does he know what is
Mhm.
like AI versus human? Does he know what is safe, what is not? So probably just as like that kind of wanting to wrap him up in cotton wool thing. I tend to try and just like shield him as much as possible from digital stuff.
Mm.
But then I worry, I'm like, am I just holding him back, like both socially and, in terms of like being able to make friends online or like it, I don't know. I feel like that's my constant struggle with him is it's like I realize that for vulnerable people and disabled people, it can give them an avenue to meet others who are more similar to them or to make friends and connect with people. But at the same time, I'm so worried about unscrupulous people or him getting attached to like a chat bot that tells him to kill himself. Like it's, you just, I don't know, the horror stories like scare me.
Yeah. And I would say, Lucinda, like for any child and any parent, I feel like, and I think it sounds like yours is more heightened because of some of that social awareness piece. But I would say that is a struggle for everyone, right? It's like how much do we want to protect our kids because we know there's so much scary stuff online. There's so much scary stuff out there. And so we want to shelter them from it. But like at what is the cost of them, not being able to access it or social if they have social limitations on it. So I think that's a really, really, really good point you're making, and I think so many parents feel that. So thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, Alexis wrote, your feelings are so valid. I would agree. Let's see, we have some other folks in the chat. So I taught my daughter how to review an app profile before downloading, rating, tracking. Fantastic. That sounds like a really great teaching. Rachel says school computers don't have accessible parenting settings, so it's hard to figure out. So it's so hard when apps have a backdoor. Absolutely. I feel like again, these technologies are changing every day, right? And they're meant to like trick our kids in a lot of ways. And we have to constantly be up to date with like what apps, are permissible, which ones lead to other things. And it's very hard work. Um, yeah, I agree, Tanya. Sometimes I have to explain why not being so strict and not letting her be on the tablet whenever she wants to be like the rest of her friends. I am with you. I have a lot of parent guilt about that. And I struggle with that a lot. Rachel has a great book recommendation for family, how to spot real versus fake information and critical thinking skills. Thank you so much for putting that into the chat, Rachel. That's fantastic. Um, okay, so Christina says, okay, it's gonna be hard for me to read through all these. I'm gonna keep going, just for timing purposes, but thank you all so much. I just want to read Christina's real quick. They asked you to schedule time. We have scheduled time with each other. That's great, but it's hard because life is so busy. Yep. Okay, so we are going to watch a very short video. And what I like about this video comes from the Pew Research Center. And what I like about it is it's sharing how families are navigating technology today. And what I appreciated, it's not experts talking, it's real parents describing what this actually looks like in real life. So let's take a look. It's just about a minute and a half long.
At Pew, our experts are thinking a lot about kids' mental health and what's more debated by parents than screen time. Today, we're walking around the office and we're going to talk to some parents about what screen time looks like at home.
I have completely lost control.
He watched a lot of TV.
I think the pandemic played a big role.
As soon as he got his phone, he was just like,
We just don't acknowledge the TV at home.
We try to limit it to about maybe an hour after school. No phones during school time and no phones at nighttime.
the moment you turn it off, that's when the tantrums start.
If he hears from other kids at school that, hey, we get to watch a lot more TV, I just say, this is our house and these are our rules. Even though they get angry and they want to tell you what it's best for them.
We try to explain, hey, it's more about your brain's health and your emotional health.
She kind of needs to be plugged in because that's where a lot of updates for activities and clubs take place.
It's a social connection, but I would also argue it's an addiction.
Okay, last question. How's your screen time?
It's awful.
What is it? Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies, something like that, yeah.
I do doom scroll a lot and I'm in the reels.
What I needed.
It's the world we live in, yeah.
I'm trying to keep them from getting to this place.
It's already hard for us. I can't imagine for a kid. So totally.
Okay. I really like that video. And so that really gets us to our next section here, which is all about our own phone use and our own technology use, not just our phones. And so I think something that's really, really helpful is to look at our own habits and think about what are some of the habits that I feel good about and what are some of the habits that could be improved. And I would just say that even with all the good habits that I've tried in my home, a lot of experts try in their homes, there's still so much room for improvement always. So I'm going to share a couple of good habits that I feel like we have in our home, and then some habits that I think could be improved. And while I'm sharing, I would encourage you to think a little bit about your own habits. And I think some of us have entered a lot of that in the chat already. But if there are other things that you want to mention, either good or could be improved, please feel free to add and share that in the chat. So some good habits that I think we have in our home is we definitely have screen-free zones. And so that looks like, no phones or devices at the dinner table, none in the bedroom. In the car, we don't allow them in the car just to have normal, natural conversation. We recently purchased a lockbox. I would say that this is one of the best things I've done because I know how compelling that these devices are, even when I teach my kids these really important skills and habits. And so that is a time where screens are completely off limits and there's no temptation. And I put them in the lockbox, and I put my own in the lockbox too a lot of times. And so that could be really, really helpful. We read real books. My husband and I just try to show our kids like this is a really nice way to, and I think someone had entered into the chat before, a lot of that like one-on-one time, just like off screen. And so one of the ways that we really enjoy being off screen is by reading books. And then another thing we really benefit from is having family meetings. And so family meetings we have once a week. And the idea is that if there's something going on in our family that feels, a little problematic, or there's a concern that comes up, we'll talk about it as a family. We have compliments and appreciations we start with, and then we delve into some kind of agenda topic. And sometimes it has to do with screen time. So like, we've been giving a lot of warnings. You haven't been getting off your screen. What should we do about it? And it's a very collaborative problem-solving way to approach things. Okay. And then we have could be improved. Let's just move this chat box over. Okay. I will say that I definitely idly scroll when I'm bored. I do have my phone on me and near me all the time for work, for all the things in life. I have a can't live without it mentality. And even as much as I really hate that, it's just important that I recognize that. And we're pretty loosey-goosey on the weekends. We're very strict during the week, but weekends, my husband and I like to enjoy our weekends. And sometimes we let screen time go a little bit longer than I think, deep down, I know I should. So let's see, some folks had entered into the chat. What are some of the habits that you feel like either are strong habits or maybe some habits that you'd like to break? I'm just going to read some of the entries into the chat here. We have the only social media I have is LinkedIn. That's really helped me. Help me from a doom scrolling mental health perspective. Good for you. That's fantastic. I imagine that's also like a really nice model for your kids. I sometimes wonder, not being on social media a lot myself, if I'm missing out on some of the stuff that I feel like I should be in the know about. I don't know, Lucinda, if you feel that way. But it's sometimes hard for me to engage with. I have switched from not being able to live without an iPad to my phone. I have some social media, but doom scrolling and introvert is not a good combination of times. Okay, Alexis, that's very self-aware. Rachel, I removed social media apps, so it's extra steps to open them and limit time on them. Good for you. That's awesome. I've been interested in looking into Brick, which is a control that you can put on your phone to limit some social media apps or any apps that you want, and you can also do it on your kids. So that's something that I'll share with you under resources, but it's something that parents have been feeling is really, really helpful. I would like to stop aimlessly scrolling and modeling healthy tech behavior. I'm with you, Tanya. Tanya, if it's Tanya, sorry. Habit I have, my phone is on silent all the time, helps me be there and not interrupt. That's fantastic. It's Christina, sounds like you have a lot of really good technology boundaries. So good, that's wonderful. Okay, we're gonna move on, but again, if you have any habits that you think are strong habits or habits that you would like to maybe separate from, and you want to share those in the chat, we would love to hear. Oh, your daughter is calling you out. I love that. You're being a phone zombie. My son will sometimes call me a screenager, and that's not a good thing. It's like he's being insulting to me, but it's good in a way. Um, so our kids are calling us out. I feel like the pendulum is swinging, and they know that it's they know that it's not good. So they can hold us accountable a little bit. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we're going to shift a little bit and now start talking more about AI. And I want to share a real question that my son asked ChatGPT the other day. Can Anthony Edwards dunk from the free throw line? And on one hand, it was amazing because within seconds he had his answer, as we all know. But, what struck me wasn't the answer. It was that there was no pause before the question. There was no wondering, there was no guessing, there was no back and forth conversation. It was just instant information. And that's really what we're seeing with AI and we all know this if our kids are of age and using it, and if we're using it ourselves, that they really don't have to sit with a question anymore and they can go straight to the answer. And so one of the real concerns is that AI can start taking the place of the thinking process, as a lot of us, I'm sure, have witnessed ourselves. So instead of working through a problem, kids can get an easy answer. Instead of brainstorming, they can generate ideas instantly. Instead of just struggling a little, they can skip right to the finished product. And when that happens over time, kids really lose those opportunities to build those social emotional skills that we talked about before, even things like persistence and critical thinking, tolerance for frustration, self-management, responsible decision making. And so I think the question is, we know AI is here to stay. We can consider it a problem, or we don't have to consider it a problem if we think of it as a powerful tool. But we can also think about some of the benefits. And so we know that AI can help us in a lot of ways. It also can help kids understand things more clearly, get unstuck when they're frustrated, generate ideas, and build confidence when they don't really know where to start. Sometimes it could act like a tutor or a brainstorming partner or a guide. And so I think the goal, at least in our home, is not to keep our kids away from AI, but make sure it supports their thinking instead of replacing it. So I wanted to give you an example. If you see attempt number 1, and this is something that actually happened in our home. So these are real life examples. My son was writing an essay about climate change. And so he could have write a 5-paragraph essay about climate change. And so that does all the work for him. So he asks for the answer and he gets the entire answer back. And then the second attempt, which is what he did with a lot of our guidance, he's really building his understanding. So one thing we try to have our kids do, and we just have encouraged a lot, not so much my younger son who doesn't use it as much, but my older son, is to think about something first, then ask, and then think again, right? So that can help build and as opposed to taking away from the thinking process. So if you ask your child, how did AI help your thinking? And they can't answer that, it's probably doing too much of the work. And so I have a question, a scenario for you all that is less about academics, but more about the social ramifications of AI. And I'm curious what you would all do. And this is actually something that did happen to us, is that if you've discovered, let's say you've discovered your child having conversations with an AI bot as if it's their friend, what would you do? What are some of the things that you might do in this kind of situation? Um, oh, let me go back to the chat here. So if you are comfortable adding your thoughts and ideas into the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Okay. Monitor so it doesn't become dependent on it. Yep. I feel that my hubby is the one falling more into the AI dependency, and it was definitely becoming an issue. I think it got scary how much he was using it. Yeah, I think this is very true for adults, right? And also very true for kids, right? The implications are so profound for both. So I'll just, as if you're sharing some of your thoughts into the chat, I'll share with you a little bit about what we did in this situation. We did find that our son was talking to ChatGPT as if it was like, just kind of back and forth conversation. There was nothing, oh, we have somebody who shared. So I'm gonna start with them actually. Um, Sorry, hold on one second. Oh, I would inquire what makes them comfortable using a bot. Yes, Tanya, that's exactly what we started with. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, my sister is doing this. I talked to her about the facts. These tools are built to maximize the time you spend to keep you hooked. Yep. And their advice is not neutral. So, Lucinda, you shared exactly the second part of what we talked to him about. And so we really tried to say, like, why do you think you're doing this? And we knew at the time he was struggling a little bit socially. And so we didn't share that with him, but it was a pretty one-word answer of like, I don't know. So then we did share the idea that, these tools are really meant to agree with you. They're really meant to build on you, and they're easy to talk to, right? They're not going to roll their eyes at you. They're not going to like talk back to you. They're not going to cause conflict. And so that can feel like an easy relationship. And then the final thing we did, which we just had to do, is we just said you're not permitted to use this in a way that is either a therapist or a coach or a friend. We put a very firm boundary on it, and it hasn't happened since. It's mostly for academic uses, but I'm just so curious for other parents if this has ever come up, even as you guys are all sharing with adults too, and really how you navigate that. It's can be very challenging. um, Oh, maybe offer if we use text to communicate sometimes with each other. Right, that's so true. I'm just trying to teach my boys old school ways of research. And if we use as a host time saver, we use AI gives us an answer. We still talk it through our research, what AI provided to make sure it's accurate. So Rachel, you're really still doing that supporting, which is fantastic. I sometimes wonder, like, and I feel that I'm building these skills in my kids as they're young. So when they get older, they'll really understand. And I think someone had brought this up before in the chat. Like, I think Lucinda had shared, like, what's real and what's not. And so really exposing them to that concept feels so important. Okay, Christina, I started edifying my hubby on his own, thought more, and I see my husband started to lean on that before. I now uses AI when creating images or flyers for business. So that's fantastic. So good for you for really pushing your husband in that direction. I have some more. Oh, we're gonna keep going here. That's great. One thing I spoke to her is being careful when she uses it. I personally do data security and anything. Yeah, shared can be found, definitely. And I think the interesting thing is, I don't know if you all follow this, but I think some things can be so useful with AI, right? They're finding that it's a real cure for elderly folks, for a cure for loneliness. Like I read this article about these people who were still living independently, but really had no access to people in the outside world. And they had these AI bots help them and navigate things for them and talk to them. And it really was such a wonderful way to support their feeling of well-being and loneliness. But then we have the other problem, right? Which is just like we're not having real human interactions and we're relying on these technologies even more. Okay, I'm just gonna read a couple more in the chat. Don't trust everything you read on the internet. Yep, go to trusted experts. Sometimes kids feel more comfortable hiding behind the screen because they're ashamed what they're sharing. Absolutely. Go in one room and have my daughter text me in another room until she's ready to talk in person. Oh, that's such a great idea. So you really use the technology in a very, in a really useful, productive way. I love that idea, Tanya. It's funny, this is probably something that I shouldn't share, but my son just got a girlfriend and they text so much with each other. It's like all through text message. And I'm so curious. I'm like, do you actually have conversations in real life? Because I think kind of to Tanya's point, that sometimes it can just feel a lot more comfortable, using a screen. And so how can we use that to our benefit? So that's a really great point. Okay, so I'm going to share with you now some really great resources that I think will be helpful as takeaways. Some experts in the field, some books, some resources, podcasts, all those things. So I don't know if some of you have read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. Um, Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist, and he wrote this book in 2024. And it's been very groundbreaking because his claim is that smartphones and social media have caused a youth mental health crisis. And I find his work to be interesting and a little bit alarming. And so there are four things that I think are very realistic that he shares that I like to think about myself. So he recommends no smartphones before high school, so roughly around the age of 14. In full disclosure, we gave our son a phone at 13. So again, this imperfect work. No social media before age 16, which I'm hoping I hold on to, and maybe our country will pass some legislation that makes it illegal to be on social media before 16, just like they did in the UK and Australia. He recommends phone-free schools, so putting those phones in lockers and pouches all day, and really this idea of more independence, free play, and real-world responsibility, which I think is a fantastic point and idea, and I think some of you have mentioned also in the chat. Max Stoessel is the founder of an organization called The Social Awakening, and I have some information for you about that. It helps teens, schools, and parents thrive in a digital world. And his advice is that everything we want to do is just to delay as much as possible the next step in our kids' technology journeys. So once you give it, it's hard to take away. So if your child, let's say, has an iPad and wants a phone, just to delay that as long as possible. Or if they have a video game device and they want something else, to delay that as long as possible. Or if they have one social media app and they want more, just as long as you can hold on to that delay without harming their, I guess, social lives or whatever you think would be the most healthy for them. That is his recommendation and something I really think I think very much about and we use a lot in our home. When you will get this presentation in an email if you have registered, if you all registered, so you'll get this presentation. I have included some slides from Allie K. Miller, who is just a wonderful resource of all things AI. And so there's about 6 slides here of really useful information things that we can consider when talking to our kids about AI. So you will get these, and I think that they'll be very useful for you. Finally, there is a video of a gentleman, his name is Jared Horvath, and he's a neuroscientist and educator, and he testified before the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. And he really believes that technology in schools has done more harm than good to our children. And so there's about a 5-minute video that I've put in this. I'll show it to you in a moment, in this thing called the Padlet that you could watch. But if you're active in your school district and you really want to advocate for change, I really recommend listening to him. He's very, very wise. I'm going to skip that. I am going to show you something called this Padlet. So if you want to take a photo of this image or this QR code with your phone, I'm also going to just quickly toggle my screen here so I can pull it up for you and show you all of the information that I have available for you. Just give me 1 second. Hold on. Okay, I actually don't think I can pull it up right now, but if you all go to your if you're able to use your phones and take a quick snapshot of this QR code, you'll find something called a Padlet. A Padlet is something that has tons of resources in it. So it has everything that you have learned here today, all the videos, the presentation is on there, any kind of resources like the phone contract I have on there. And so this is all for you. You could use it anytime you want. You could share it with anybody. But I hope that it's something that feels helpful and useful. And again, this presentation will be sent to you, so you don't have to worry about copying it down right now. So I hope that Padlet is helpful. And finally, I just wanted to share some, I don't know if any of us are, I think some of us are working parents here. I'm certainly a working parent. And so I think sometimes we just need an entry point to get into this work. And so I wanted to provide 4 just really simple things that you could try. It sounds like a lot of us are trying these things already, but you can think about something, an anchor moment. So an anchor moment is just one daily moment that's screen free. It could be dinner, it could be bedtime, it could be the first 10 minutes of school, it could be in the car, but you get to choose, and that really, you're not controlling the whole day necessarily, you're just protecting one moment. We have the when then routine. So to reduce negotiating and building independence, you can say something like, when homework is done, then we have screen time. Or when we get home, we'll have 10 minutes of 20 minutes of downtime before devices. So when this happens, then that happens. And so it's not, they know and they have the expectation that that's coming. The 2-minute check-in could be really helpful. So once a day or a few times a week, asking your child to show them one thing that they did online or on their devices. Again, sometimes that emotional check-in is even more important. So like, let's talk about how you felt after you played this, how you felt after you were in that group chat. So it could work for anything. And then this parking spot habit. So really thinking about charging devices in one place overnight. And this really can help with sleep. It could help reduce late night scrolling. You could do it even if bedtime schedules are different. So this is just an entry point if you're a busy working parent. And so just to end this workshop for today, and then if there are any questions or anything else, anyone else wants to add, to please feel free to stay on for another few minutes. Oh, Kari, thank you for putting the Padlet in the chat. I was getting worried that I didn't have the link. Kari put it in the chat, everyone, if you want to take a look at the Padlet. So AI and technology are tools, and we know that relationships and our guidance that we provide our children are more powerful, and that digital well-being is really about teaching these skills. And a lot of them is about structures and systems as well. But if we can think about those 5 core skills, we're really helping them to internalize that and take that out in the world. And the most important thing, I think, is that not expecting ourselves to be perfect in this work, but that small, consistent shifts and really small tweaks to the things that we're already doing are going to make all the difference. And so being kind and gracious with ourselves. So as we end this presentation, I'm just curious if you have any takeaways from today, anything that you might want to try. Again, this could be a good time if you have any questions or any last minute things that you wanted to share. I'd love to hear from you. I'm just going to read some of the responses in the chat. Okay. Love the Padlet. That's awesome. I'm so glad I find it to be very useful as well. Oh, thanks so much, Tanya. I hope I'm saying your name the right way. If I'm not, please feel free to correct me. I'm so glad that it was informative. I've done this presentation many times. Oh, the digital contract really worked for Rachel. That's fantastic. I've done this presentation many times, and I find that the most important thing and the most helpful thing is parents coming together to really talk about these topics and share ideas and to really know that we're not alone. And so I hope that that's a feeling that you felt during this presentation. Blocking 1 hour to check emails before bed, putting time aside from that. Yes, I think I'm with you, Lucinda. I think that 1 hour before bed is a great idea. The phone locker. Oh, yeah. The lockbox. I got it on Amazon. It was like 30 something bucks. My kids don't like it. They always try to see the code. I don't care. I do feel a little bit like a warden, and I don't like that feeling, but I'm feeling like I need to protect that time away from the screens. And so I will just say, Tanya, if you try it and you feel not great using it, just to keep going, because I'm with you. And I don't love it either, but it's something I feel is kind of necessary, unfortunately. And okay, and so just to close out, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me here today. Alexis has put a couple of things into the chat for you. We would love to hear your feedback on how it went today. If you have positive feedback, if you have constructive feedback, it will help me to know how to do this in the next presentation. And then we have an upcoming webinar next week all about creating meaningful partnerships for youth. So please join us. And if you have any questions, again, this presentation will be emailed to you. My email address is in there, and I'd love to hear from you. Excuse me. I'm just looking at the chat real quick. Setting up downtime on the phone helps to, in place of a lockbox. Yeah, definitely. And app limits. Yep. Rachel, that's great. And I'm considering, I don't know if anyone else has been considering using the Brick app to really limit those apps that we do not want to have our kids to have access to. I'll just write it in the chat here, or that we don't want to have access to as well. So, okay, again, thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Good luck with all this work. And again, this will be emailed to you, so please be in touch if you would like to. Have a wonderful rest of your day.